welcome to Season 7, Episode 32 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we'll discuss the overwhelming reaction to Ubuntu 14.10, and we'll read your feedback. If you're listening live, hello. You can send us messages using the chat doofer on the website and in the hash UUPCIRC channel. I'm Alan. Joining me this week are Tony.
Good evening.
Hello, Tony.
Hello.
He looked in the opposite direction.
I wasn't looking at him.
I love doing that.
Don't look at me in the eyes.
And Laura.
Hello.
Hello. And Mark.
Hello.
On the wheels of steel.
Yes, indeed.
Cool.
Where I was born to be.
It's
Yes.
all under control.
So, Tony, what have you been up to?
I went to SPAN conference yesterday.
What on earth is that?
It's a conference about scaling stuff.
It was a bit technical for Tony.
Yeah, it's a conference about scaling software.
They didn't talk about gaming much then.
No, there's no gaming news. Occasionally there were a few mentions, but it was about enterprise scaling software stuff. But I wasn't there to attend and learn, although I did get something from a couple
You're
of
making the
talks.
tea, were you?
I was photographing it.
Of course.
Is someone getting married there?
There were no marriages that I saw.
Were there Daleks?
There
They have
were
to be Daleks.
There were no Daleks. There were no marriages. Yeah, but thanks to Matt Revell of former Lug Radio fame and former Canonical fame, and
Podcasting.
yeah, generally he's been on the show a couple of times and things. Yeah, so he asked me to go along to photograph the conference, so I did that, and it was good fun. Yeah, long day, but yeah, it was good.
Super. Mark, what have you been up to?
I have been recording some audio for the audio edition of Linux Voice.
Hello, what?
What?
So one of the things that Linux Voice said as part of their initial campaign was that after 9 months they were going to release their material as Creative Commons after 9 months. And as part of that, what they've said was it'd be really great if they can make it available like as accessibly as possible. So they want to create an audio version.
Interesting.
So what they've done is basically put all of the segment titles up in a blog post, which they think will work as audio recordings, and asked people who read the magazine to record a segment. So I did.
Right.
Oh,
So is this?
I did a couple.
This is like my mum sometimes does these sort of reading magazines or reading newspapers onto I think MP3s now.
Cassettes,
For people who
wasn't
are it was cassettes I think when she started out, yeah. But for people who are partially sighted or whatever.
Want to listen in the car or something.
Yeah.
I mean anything.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not necessarily
okay.
people who can't read, but maybe people who prefer not to.
Oh yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought of
That
the
sounds ideal for me.
Yeah, as we've established the last 2 episodes.
Yes. And
So, yes.
all 9 of my Linux Voice episodes are still in their wrapper on the shelf.
The episodes in their wrapper.
Issues.
The issues, yes, are all in their wrapper.
Oh,
So yeah, if you go to linuxvoice.com, I think they've not actually put the recordings up except for the ones that they did initially to kick it off. But I think they're still looking for a couple. So if somebody is listening and is interested in speaking, not just listening,
speaking,
Interesting
yeah.
in speaking, yes.
yes,
Yeah.
then
Are there
go
any
on.
requirements? Do you have to have
You
a
have to have
particularly good voice or something?
a microphone and be able to use Audacity. And if you don't have a copy of issue 1, you can email them and they'll send you a PDF.
Ah,
Nice.
excellent. Good way
Cool.
to get a free magazine.
How about you, Laura? What have you been up to?
I've been using YNAB.
YNAB what?
It's you need a budget.
What?
It's not free software. However, it does run on Ubuntu. It used to run on Linux apparently better because it's an Adobe Air application. But it now installs on Wine.
What is it?
It's budget software basically.
Well, like GNU Cache or
I don't know
QuickBooks
because
or
I've never
something?
used any of those.
Right.
And I've tried to use spreadsheets and it doesn't work very well.
What made you choose YNAB?
'Cause,
Other than the ridiculous name.
I know it's a stupid name. Because a friend at work was using it, and there's an Android app or iPhone app for it as well. So the idea is that you set up your budget on the spreadsheet
Right.
style thing, and then when you buy something, you enter that in your phone, and that syncs back through Dropbox and things. It's pretty cool, and it works on my Ubuntu machine. The only slight thing that doesn't work is just one little dialogue doesn't appear when it's meant to, but it's not critical.
Interesting. I wonder if that's fixed with a later version of Wine. Could be a Wine thing.
It could be. It does.
Yeah.
It does sit there churning. So I think there's just
There is
some
a
leak or something somewhere.
there is a Wine PPA, I think, with
okay.
and it's maintained by the Wine people.
Might give
So
that a go.
might be worth
Yeah.
a punt.
So it has a month-long full-featured demo,
Yes.
and then it's some money, presumably.
Well,
Ironically,
well,
Do you have to set aside your budget for that?
yes. No, well,
it
I did
comes with it
download.
pre-allocated.
I did download the trial originally, and they have all this kind of stuff around it. So the idea is you could do it without buying the software at all if you wanted to. You can still use their educational stuff, and it's like there's these 4 rules, and it's a bit like Scientology in that respect. You sort of move up the. No, it's
Wow.
not. It's really not. It's, the ultimate thing is the idea that you can live off last month's income. So you've always got an income in hand,
Right.
and so they kind of build you up to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point is that they do all these webinars. So I joined a webinar, and at the end of every webinar, they do a draw for a license, and I won the license.
Oh, cool.
So I got a free copy. So I was $40 up.
Joined a
from the start.
webinar, lost your freedom.
Yeah.
Well done.
Alan, what have you been doing, my friend?
I went to Washington, but we haven't got time to talk about that. So
Oh,
let's
go
move
on.
on.
Did you blog about it?
I did.
Okay, read your blog. Popey.com.
/blog.
So we were talking about the new release of Ubuntu.
There's been a new release of Ubuntu.
I know.
Wow.
So apparently it happened last Thursday.
Yes.
Didn't really notice, and this is the point.
Right.
Okay.
So our question is, should all software releases have a fanfare?
Good question. So I guess the reason why people didn't notice is because there wasn't a lot of PR around it, because there wasn't any like massively new features going into it. So it wasn't like, a big deal about, some, new desktop, new icons, new theme or anything like that. It looks very similar to 14.
So what has actually changed?
Well, there's loads of bug fixes and security updates, and all the applications are updated. New LibreOffice, new kernel.
But this is
blah, blah,
this
blah.
is the release after an LTS. Aren't you supposed to break things?
It's interesting. Lots of people say that. They kind of say, "Oh well, the one after an LTS is the."
Yeah, we
I've
want
heard
another
it-
nasty newt or whatever it was called.
I've heard it called a cowboy release.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look back, that's not always the case. If you look back at the LTS, the one after 10.04 and the one after 6.06, I
They're
think
usually better, actually, aren't they?
Even the one after 8.04,
No, I remember that one very well.
8.10.
I had to use OpenSUSE for 6 months.
Oh, bless. But some of them, if you go back and have a look at the reviews, they are like, nothing new landed or nothing major landed. And often, part of that might be that the LTS was based on Debian testing, and the one after the LTS is based on Debian unstable, and so there's a load of stuff pulled in from Debian unstable, and everyone's busy doing all that and pulling all the new stuff in, and there's not actually anything super new and interesting landing in that LTS.
I think it was the 10.04 one I found that 10.10 sort of fixed everything that didn't work very well in 10.04.
Right.
And
Interesting.
gave you the drivers that you actually wanted and things like that. I think it was the 10 release.
Right. So, I mean, this happens to have been a release that doesn't have a huge amount in it. Part of the reason for that is most of the company is working on the phone.
Right.
So, with everyone focused on making sure Unity 8 works well on the phone and all the apps work on the phone, there's fewer people working on the desktop. There's still a desktop team, and there's still people maintaining Unity 7 and so on, compiz and all of that, malarkey and doing the ISO testing and stuff. But it's just not as many people focused on it. So there's fewer people creating new stuff for the desktop.
So in commercial software, software that you pay for to upgrade or you pay for each release or whatever, you generally have to have lots of new features in, otherwise people won't pay for
Or you
it.
had to put the features back in which you took out in the previous release.
As my friend Richard Stallman says, wait. You said commercial software. Do you mean proprietary software?
Well, not necessarily.
Well, that's why I
No.
paused, but I mean, where you have to pay for it.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's proprietary or not.
Okay.
It's
You
where
have to motivate people to part with some
yeah,
cash.
what
Right.
is there a justification for spending money, or should they just stay on the release that they're already on? And if you don't put the shiny new things in that impress them, they're not going to upgrade.
It's the problem they had with Microsoft Office for years and years.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they put the ribbon in, and everybody was like, oh.
Well, yeah, I guess. And the fact that, our product is free makes
Yes.
it a hard sell, if you like. But the thing is, it's something you can upgrade to anyway. Whether you don't, it's not you get it anyway.
Yeah.
Whether we make a big song and dance about it or not, if you're already on it, you get that upgrade. But for new people, yes,
Yeah.
it's not a great way for us to entice new people into the platform by saying we've just put out a new release. There's nothing new in it,
But
go for it anyway.
But then if they're new people, they don't know what went in this release versus last release. So you just tell them what's in there.
Right, yeah, we could do a big, blog post about this is the best release ever. It's faster, it uses less memory, and all that kind of, marketing stuff. But actually, if you ran 1404, you'd get pretty much the same experience.
And that's what you probably want new people on anyway.
Well, yeah, and I'm surprised. I keep seeing people talking about upgrading. Right, I'm going to upgrade to 1410, and I think, why? Why are you doing that?
Not to put them off.
But then that's what we've ingrained in people is that on release day people go nuts downloading. I'm downloading the new ISO, or I'm upgrading, and the archive's slow, and I can't upgrade, and it's taking ages, and all that kind of stuff. That people will wait 2 days because it takes too long to upgrade.
Well, it used to be that there were big chunks of improvement in each release.
Right.
And not only was...
Your mouse might start working.
Yeah.
Or not.
Or stop. Not only was Ubuntu putting in more polish into the distribution, but the general sort of Linux ecosystem was still developing underneath it.
Mm.
So, you were having new drivers and things land, and my perception, maybe wrongly, but my perception is that the pace of evolution of the Linux desktop has slowed over the last couple of years. So there is no real compelling reason to upgrade.
Right. And, it's got to the point where more or less most of the time on a modern machine you bought in the last 5 years, your wireless will work. Any USB stick you plug in will work. A Bluetooth adapter will work.
Yeah.
Your mouse, keyboard, gaming controller will all work. The video driver will work. There's fewer and fewer things that just that don't work that compel you to say, oh wow, that's fixed in Linux kernel 3.16 or something.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I can't remember. I think I heard someone make the comment on another podcast that really it's I don't really care about getting a new version of the operating system. I more care about getting new versions of the apps. Because the operating system works and then it gets out of my way, which is what Ubuntu does, which is why I like it. Then what I actually care about is, can I run the latest versions of the apps?
Right, and that is interesting in and of itself because that's what we're moving to with 1504, 1510, maybe 1604. That kind of timeline. It's going to be the case that you update your system, and then after that you get app updates. So a new version of LibreOffice comes out, boom, you get it. And that could be a 4.0 to 5.0, not just a 4.1, 4.11 or something like that, and a little incremental bug fix. You'd get brand new version of the app, and the same with your browser and whatever other applications you've got installed as well. That we're making that separation between the OS and the apps. So the OS is built using Debian packages in the same way as it is now, but the apps are delivered via Click packages from the Click store. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what we're aiming to do, is make it so that users don't have to worry about OS updates. They just get their app updates as daily Click packages.
So what sorts of other examples of things that upgrade a lot? And
Well, so I'm looking at my Android tablet and I can see I've got some software updates, and I almost never, I have it set to automatically update, right? And the same goes with when I had an iPhone, that would automatically update. I never go and look and see what's they are. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I've just become lethargic about software updates, or I've been conditioned now that Firefox
doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, well,
but then, that's different because it's exactly the same with the Ubuntu Update Manager. When that pops up, you don't say, "Oh, what are all the updates?" But if a new version of Android pops up and says, "Oh, there's a new version of Android to download," do you not then think, "Oh, I wonder what's new"?
Yeah.
Well, if it's a major release,
yeah.
So if it was 4 to 5, then I might.
And they do tend to make a fanfare about that.
They
with
do
Android
because they make a lot of changes. But for a minor release, you might think an LTS to a non-LTS release for Android, from a 4.4 to a 4.5 or something like that, I probably wouldn't even look. I'd just go, yeah, all right, whatever, and press the update button. Would you not?
You like, no, I always wait for somebody at work to do it first and then ask them how it's gone. Unfortunately, there's about 3 or 4 of us on the corridor with the same phone. So I wait for
And
someone-
what are you expecting to happen if they update? Are you expecting the whole UI to change and you don't like it, so you won't update to it? Or are you expecting some critical app that they use that you also use, it breaks, and that's
yeah,
annoying?
any of those things.
Just bad stuff happens.
Yeah, and
See,
yeah,
I find
there
that
have been-
surprising that you have an expectation that stuff will break from, Android, which has millions and millions of users around the
Yeah,
world.
but he's got experience of years of Linux.
Yeah,
True that.
yeah. I used to run Debian unstable on boxes in work.
In
and
the
then,
days when he was technical.
yeah, when I was capable
But
of
as
doing
I
such
understand
things.
it, the way Android delivers updates is they do canary, like they do builds to a small set of people, and based on
right.
the number of error reports they get back from that small set of people, they widen the pool to more people and more people and more people, which is
Okay.
why you don't have everyone getting the update at the same time. That's why you get the update later than
Yeah,
someone else. And even
I've
if you're sat there
noticed that.
refreshing and
Yeah.
clearing cache and doing whatever you can to try and force the thing, sometimes it won't come to you because it's been canaried out to a bunch of other people first.
That's good.
But what if you're the canary?
Well, yes.
Nature's canary.
So what about Mac OS X? Because that's one where you do need to get people to pay for it generally, don't you? On
What,
a
for the
desktop.
OS? Are we talking OS or apps?
OS on the desktop.
Yeah, well, for major releases, the most recent
Like
one was
Snow
free,
Leopard
I
or
think.
whatever.
Yeah, I
yeah,
thought they'd moved to it being free.
Yeah, the last
okay.
two, Maverick and Yosemite, were both free.
Okay.
Worst name ever.
What, Yosemite?
Maverick.
Yosemite.
Yes.
Okay, Maverick and Yosemite. Yeah, those are now free. I mean, it's quite a major operation to upgrade a system, like whether it's Linux or OS X or Windows. They're pretty major, and the same with mobile devices as well. And yeah, you see quite significant change, but they're also trying to entice developers as well to move because they have new APIs. It's not
right.
just you as a user should upgrade because this new thing has Shiny that you will like. It's more aimed at you developers should target this new version because there's a new Shiny you can deliver to your users who are customers who will pay you
Yeah.
for that stuff.
Of course, yeah.
So it's more aimed at them than end users.
So do you think it's fair to say now that it's kind of people only really notice new features if they're either really good or really annoying?
Really significant or really broken.
Yeah.
It's
So like all these people upgrading their iPhones and then complaining about, is it iOS
8.
yeah, that one. And they're all complaining about that. But if it just gone smoothly and been boring, they'd probably just gone, yeah, whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have an iPhone sat on my desk that I don't use anymore, and I updated it to iOS 8 and didn't really notice any difference.
Okay.
It's probably because I've got an older phone. If I had a brand new one, I probably might notice some of the new shiny. But yeah, I don't think it's just us. I don't
No.
think it's just us that have this apathy around new software updates. I think this is a general trend because there are automatic updates in iOS and Android and automatic browser updates, and a browser is like the biggest thing everybody uses all day every day.
Yeah.
These app updates, it's going to get to the point where the desktop OS is going to do these incremental changes and you won't notice.
Which is what Ubuntu's always done.
Well,
You've always
incremental
had-
bug fixes, yeah, but I'm
Oh,
talking
right,
about
yeah.
major point releases. So from
Yeah.
14.04 to 14.10. So yeah, I reckon in 3 years' time, maybe less, you'll be updating your Ubuntu machine and the OS underneath will change and the kernel will change and all the other bits and pieces, all the libraries underneath will change and you just won't notice. It'll just be okay, I'll take that update.
Yeah.
Will we still get to have nicknames for releases?
Yeah, we might burn through them pretty quickly if we.
The rolling
Well,
roadhog.
No, but yeah, it'll be like what was it? Grumpy Groundhog was the idea to have a rolling release. Grumpy Groundhog. Yeah, I think it makes sense given that everything else is moving in that direction. It makes no sense for us to stop the train every 6 months. Everybody get off and ship it and polish it and then push it out the door and then start again.
There's always someone
Yeah.
who's in the
every
loo.
6 months. Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Well, do you know what? We actually had the release last week while we were in Washington, and that's unusual. We don't usually have half the company in the same place when the release is happening.
So if a
yeah.
bomb had gone off in Washington.
Well, indeed. So
That would have been the biggest story. Half of Canonical
yeah.
wiped out.
it's hard because the release is always on a Thursday, and the release team are really hard at work getting that release out the door and making sure all the right buttons are pressed to make sure the release goes out on time and the mirrors are up to date, and all the web pages are all up to date and everything. And everyone else around them who's kind of finished what they're doing because everything's frozen now because of the release, they're all standing around waiting to drink a beer. And so they had a party and they deferred the party till the Friday because it's a little bit difficult if you're all standing around waiting to have a beer and the release team are still sat there, doing their work. It's not very comfortable for them if everyone's around them going, "Yay, 1410's out, let's have a beer." So they deferred that until the Friday. So we have parties on Friday now, which is the most important part of the race. Maybe we'll have fewer parties.
I was going to say, maybe the biggest thing about the release is the developers wanting to have a party, and actually the customers, users, don't care.
Well, now that as soon as 1410 went out, the archive for Vivid Vervet, which will be 1504,
Granville.
Vivid Vervet will be 1504. That archive's open, and they've started work on that already. So it doesn't really stop for very long. It freezes for a while before the release, and then it's full steam ahead.
All aboard. There you
With
go.
your hangovers.
If you've got any thoughts about whether software should be fanfared or just slip quietly out into the ether, send us an email, podcast@ubuntu-uk.org. It's time for another command line love, and this one has been sent in by a chap called Popey.
Hello.
Oh dear, it's him.
Alan's here.
This one is called Fish, and I presume it's something to do with fishing.
No.
Or labels on backs of cars.
What?
Ooh.
Oh, no, that's a game we play.
That's a game you play.
Yeah, it is.
What's Fish about then?
Fish? So I discovered Fish by watching someone else use it. So I didn't really discover it. I just saw someone use it and thought, that looks interesting. What is it?
Let's claim it for myself.
Exactly. It's a shell like Bash or ZSH.
Right.
The friendly interactive shell, I believe.
Shellfish.
Exactly. Friendly interactive shell. And I've set Fish to be my shell now instead of Bash.
Oh.
And it's really nice because it's got tab completion. And you might think, well, I already have tab completion. But this is quite cool because it kind of guesses the commands that you're going to type. So
Can you just sit and let it go?
not
keep
quite.
hitting tab.
Yeah, just keep hitting tab. Eventually, RM-R. So for example, I often like SCP files to another place, or I run certain commands with certain parameters.
Right.
And I just start typing the first couple, and it fills in, or it guesses not only the command that I'm typing, but also the parameters that I'm likely to put
Ooh,
after
that's
it.
nice.
And all you do is just press the right-hand arrow key, and it goes boop, and fills the whole thing in. You just press enter. Done.
And if you do a series of things like you change to a certain directory, you start Cartwall, those sorts of things, does it remember that if you do one
Hypothetically.
command, hypothetically, you're likely to follow the next one?
I don't know. I don't know what the logic, the heuristics of how it figures out what you do, or whether it just thinks, well, this command starts with a C, and you usually type that. So yeah, let's go. For it. But I found it really speeds me up because I can just like I was a few days ago. I SCP'd some files up to a server somewhere, and I couldn't remember the directory that I put them in. And I just typed SC, and it went and filled in the whole line with the directory of everything. And I was like, oh, yes, that's perfect.
One thing I quite like about Fish is the top of the website says, finally a command line shell for the 90s. Just quite good.
Brilliant.
If you combine it with that terminal emulator app that looks like an old green
cool
screen.
retro term. Yes.
What was that called? Is that what it's called?
Cool retro term. Yeah.
And that's
it used
what
to
it
be called cool old term, but old is old, and now retro is the new old. So
Is it? I thought that was quite old now.
It's cool retro term.
It's not vintage these days.
Maybe it'll be called cool nouveau term or something at some point. Nouveau retro.
Well, Super Engineer is listening live and suggests that, Alan, you've just said the phrase, I've set Fish to be my shell, on the record, and there are men in white coats coming for you.
Well, it's quite nice. Once I configured it, I've not looked back yet.
Cool.
Excellent. And that's all the command line love this week.
It's time for some feedback. After last time's discussion about diversity in OggCamp, we got a bit of feedback. And the first one up is from Brian Walton, who emailed us to say, I've just paused episode 30 during your discussion on diversity at OggCamp. I'm not sure I agree with the idea of implementing quotas on each type of person you'd like to see attend. You're right to encourage more inclusive behaviour if you can identify areas lacking in this. He said, I've not attended any community event despite wanting to. It's not because of the colour of my skin or my gender or where I was born. I feel nervous about attending for other reasons. You could survey why people do and don't attend. In this way, you might find out how to be more inclusive across the board. You may discover whether people of a minority sector feel excluded, and if so, why. I appreciate that ingrained behaviour influences those around us, and we're often unaware of it, and that changing such behaviour can have positive effects. This may be more important than simple quotas. Right, back to the podcast. Maybe you go on to say these things and I've wasted my time writing this, but you do keep telling us to get in touch in a slightly colonial manner.
Blame Tony.
Yes.
It's tricky doing a survey of people who didn't attend
Because
a
how
conference.
do you know that they didn't attend?
Who would you target that? How would
Yeah.
you target that? That's tricky.
Yes. It's very easy
it's-
to target people who did attend.
We know the known knowns, but people who didn't turn
Yeah.
up, but we don't know the unknown unknowns.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you didn't come to OggCamp for a reason and
Yes.
you're listening to this, tell
And
us
there are a
why.
lot of people, probably.
Yeah, but the Venn diagram is pretty small that you're looking at there. You want all the people who heard about it, who maybe don't listen to this and didn't come.
But a lot of people who listen to the podcast don't come to OggCamp.
True.
So that's a good start.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah,
we do
fair
ram it
point.
down their throats. So.
we do. We do.
And there'll be a lot of people who, perhaps listen around the world and simply just can't get to the UK to go to OggCamp.
It would be nice to have just like a simple 2-question survey that is just like one tick box: did you go to OggCamp? Yes or no, and another one that says if not, why not, and just a free text field, and people could just put whatever they like in there.
Yeah, then do some sort of analysis of it.
Imagine
Later.
we've sent you that form. Could you send us an email with those answers in?
Or we could just do
Yes.
that. That would Google
Stick it on the
Google
website.
survey
Yeah.
survey thing and put it in the show notes or something. That might be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Why not? Give that a go.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting.
make that so.
And then Brian36 left a comment on the website saying,
Thanks for the podcast. Very thought-provoking, especially with regard to colour and gender at public meetings. I belong to art and language groups, and most members are female. Maybe that's because we're retired and most men stay at home to watch the footy. I'm also a radio ham, and as this is worldwide, colour and ethnicity doesn't come into it, but you do have to pass an exam. Most radio hams are male, so what's the problem? Each social group comes loaded with stuff like geekery and prejudices. It's right to take a good look hard at ourselves and try to take away the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, interesting. As you say, something like Radio Ham, which is essentially open to everyone, a bit like open source is, yet there may still be factors that prevent some groups of people feeling that they can engage with it. Even though open source has the anonymity, if you like, or of being behind usernames and things which don't have to reveal anything specific about you. Radio Ham stuff, I believe they use voices still. It's speech rather than Morse or anything like that.
Although you could put your voice through some sort of voice disguise.
Yeah,
mechanism.
but there's a whole debate about whether people should have to pretend to be themselves or somebody else online anyway. But without getting into that, are there other reasons that people don't feel they can engage? And just sort of talking about these things, as Brian says, I think is important just to think about them, really mull them around.
I did read something the other day that said that although where you in open source, everybody's like, oh well, you don't have to reveal your gender or your colour or whatever, and actually what happens is everyone assumes you're white and male.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there is a big movement for people to be themselves, and whatever gender, whatever ethnicity, whatever anything else they decide that they are, be that online and don't try and hide it. Cool.
And next, Phelan Whiteley emailed to say,
As per your pottering news last week...
were you trying to do his accent?
No, I wasn't.
Sorry, you started very, very slowly.
As per your pottering news last week, Here's a link to an LWM piece as a very balanced point that the kernel mailing list really isn't the hive of scum and villainy it's hyped to be, except on the very odd occasion. Gives a great example of how they help someone who's repeatedly ignored them. I'm not saying there isn't some issue there, but Herr Pottering and his compatriots seem to be partaking in some serious pot kettle light absorption competition. I see what you're saying there, Phelan. Anyway, I hope they screened Tony, and I know Africa is a very big country, but no... He put country.
Yeah, he does underline that. I think
Okay,
it's meant to be a joke.
Yes, but you can't be too careful.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's a 21-day incubation period for
No
Ebola.
snogs for Tony.
I'm well past that.
And that's the end of your feedback.
Oh,
Is
bang.
it?
Is it really? Are you sure there's not another one there? Because
Alan points at the clock. There
okay,
are.
Alan points at the clock.
Excellent.
Seamless.
I think we should just do that last one about
Oh,
Ogcamp.
for God's sake. I would like to thank Mark in particular for all his effort putting in organising OggCamp 14. This was my first OggCamp, and I hope it will be the first of many. I really appreciate the effort put in by Mark and all the organisers and every member of the crew who selflessly contribute to such a wonderful event. I enjoyed Popey's talk on the Ubuntu phone
See?
and look forward to its release from Max Dokes, probably not typed in that tone of voice.
No, it was a very, very nice email that you've just ruined.
It's a nice email for you and Mark.
And you ruined it for yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks very much for that.
Thanks for listening. Our next show will be on Wednesday, the 12th of October.
November.
Yeah, that one. Wednesday, the 12th of November at 8:30.
In the evening.
Yes.
UTC.
Yes.
I hope
It's
everybody.
UTC now.
GMT.
I hope everybody managed to cope with the time change
Yeah.
properly.
No. I had one meeting today where it arrived an hour earlier.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the other person insisted, no, it's in the calendar in UTC. I was like, may well be, but it's moved.
With ours, it depends who sets it up
Yeah.
as to which time zone it takes.
Exactly. Well, he said at UTC, apparently what you should do is set all your meetings to be either in Iceland or Argentina.
Great,
And then they
'cause
won't
don't
move. Yes.
Excellent.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.